Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's Star Wars Lads Monday special. For this week's special, I'm doing a bit of a breakdown of a notable Jedi tree. And while this is more of an interesting perspective on how I rank and judge these Jedi both individually and against each other, this could end up being a sort of format for a new series if you guys like it. So, what other tree could I talk about other than the most powerful and galaxy altering one out there? The Yoda to Rey tree. Now, this is going to have some surprising takes, but let's get into it. Yoda is a character that we all love for numerous reasons, but a big part of his character is the mystery behind him. We don't know anything about his species, and the only other members we know of are Yaddle and Grogu. Just as big of a mystery is the centuries of life that Yoda has lived before the prequels. We're getting a taste of what he was doing 250 years before the prequels in the High Republic, and presumably we'll see what he was doing 400 years before the prequel trilogy as we go back in time for Phase 2. But for now, we don't really know how his life began and who trained him to become a Jedi. In Legends, Yoda was taught by Nakara del Gormo, a Hisalrian Jedi Master, who trained Yoda and a human friend when they crash landed on the swamp world that he was residing on. He was a character just briefly introduced in the old Star Wars Galaxy magazine and was considered an in-universe legend even back then, so we can't really consider him a part of any discussion of this tree. That leaves Yoda as the first member. Yoda has been credited as teaching many Jedi over his 900 years, and he always was teaching younglings and batches of Padawans until the Great Jedi Purge, but he rarely took on a direct Padawan of his own. There are exceptions, and one that might be surprising / possibly not true. Yoda's most famous Padawan is Dooku, who needs no introduction. I've been very pleased with how his character has grown through the Clone Wars and especially Dooku Jedi Lost, as well as his appearances in other books like Master and Apprentice and the comics with Age of the Republic. Yoda has also recently been revealed to have trained Cantum Psi during the early days of the High Republic. They only really got appearances in Wave 3 of Phase 1 of the High Republic in the form of the High Republic Adventures and Trail of Shadows, but they had some strong chapters regarding their early years during a leave of absence from the Order in Midnight Horizon. We're going back 150 years in Wave 2, but hopefully we get to pick up with them sooner rather than later. Ki-Adi-Mundi is also trained by Yoda, as his Legends history firmly cements this relationship, and the Star Wars workbook, second grade reading, alludes to that being true in canon as well. Finally, the wildcard that even I didn't know about, Sin Drawing. Sin Drawing is a Jedi Master best known for being a boss in the Revenge of the Sith video game adaptation, an underrated game I might add, who is the Battle Master and Chief of Security for the Jedi Temple. He was known as the Order's best duelist, but was killed by Darth Vader during the siege of the Jedi Temple. He might have been trained in a batch like Yoda has with other Padawans, but for now I'm going to assume he was a direct Padawan of Yoda's due to his elite lightsaber skills. Moving past these four, we move to their Padawans. For Cantum, their Padawan is Lula Talisola, one of the main protagonists in the High Republic Adventures and a recurring character in the middle grade books in Phase 1 of the High Republic. She's got a lot of doubts for herself, but she's a very capable leader amongst the Jedi Padawans of this era and has a love interest brewing with Zeen Marala. Though she has passed on her knighting so far in her story, she is one of the most gifted young Jedi at this time. Dooku, meanwhile, has a similar situation to Yoda, with 2 confirmed Padawans and one sorta canon, sorta Legends character. Dooku's first Padawan is Bad Boy Rael Averross, one of the main supporting characters in Master and Apprentice, who bends the Jedi Code to sleep around with numerous people, consume death sticks, and accept his master's growing darkness and lust for power. He served as a big brother for Dooku's more well-known Padawan, Qui-Gon Jinn, the wise Jedi Master who refused a council seat and believed more in the living force and cosmic force than any of the Jedi dogma. Qui-Gon is best known for being the maverick who became obsessed with ancient prophecies and crossed paths with the prophesized Chosen One shortly before his death. Lastly, Dooku had one unnamed Padawan, who fell to the dark side at some point and was eliminated for being an embarrassment. She had 2 twin lightsabers with a curved hilt, which stayed in Dooku's possession until he gave them to Asajj Ventress. Though unidentified in canon, it's speculated that she could be Kamari Vosa from Legends, best known to those who played the old bounty hunter game back in the day. Could we see her as a Jedi one day? Maybe. The next generation of Padawans begins with Averross's late Padawan, Nymphiana, who was killed by Averross when she was overtaken by nanotech and began to attack her master and the Maroon crew members of their mutiny rescue mission. Qui-Gon's Padawan went even further beyond his master, though he himself would never admit it. Obi-Wan Kenobi has been a central figure in Star Wars for so long, and we are about to see him as he makes his transition from the prequel to the original era in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. There's no real info on Lula's future in Cinderalling's mastership, but it's not bad to have a little mystery on those fronts for now. From here, it becomes a bit complicated. Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, became Obi-Wan's Padawan, though mostly because Obi-Wan made a promise to a dying Qui-Gon to train Anakin. Qui-Gon could arguably have been a much more suitable master for Anakin, but Obi-Wan truly did his best, and they went from master and apprentice to brothers over the course of the Clone Wars, as covered in the show and beginning with Star Wars Brotherhood. We'll have a review of that awesome book later this week, so stay tuned to see how they made that transition. Anakin took on his own Padawan during the war, the beloved Ahsoka Tano, who's one of the main characters in the Clone Wars show, a key player in Star Wars Rebels, and has recently made the leap from animation to live action in The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. And she's got her own show currently in production as well. Maybe we see her younger self in Obi-Wan Kenobi in a flashback with her master and Obi-Wan. But that's more of a wish on my part to really see this big three in their most fleshed out era in live action. Ahsoka never got the chance to have her own apprentice due to the events of the Skywalker saga, but Obi-Wan and Yoda both ended up training Luke Skywalker over the course of the original trilogy. It's kind of hard to top those two for the greatest Jedi Masters to have ever. I wish I could say that all of Luke's Jedi Academy was personally trained by him, but that's probably not true. Characters like Hennix, Ty, and Vogt take a large role in the Rise of Kylo Ren comics, but they, like several others on this tree, are only vaguely connected. Grogu is trained by Luke for some time, but his very quick return to Din Djarin means that he's currently just a renounced member of this tree. Luke trains his sister, Leia Skywalker, Organa Solo, but they only had somewhere around a year post-Battle of Endor together before she quits her training. Leia sees a vision of her unborn Ben dying if she were to complete her training, which prompts her to just give up that path. The glimpses we've seen of her show that she built her own lightsaber, was adept with the Force, and could best her brother in combat at times, confirming just how strong the Skywalker bloodline is within this already powerful Jedi tree. Lastly, Luke trained Ben Solo at his academy along with his other students, but his training is implied to have begun earlier and been longer than the rest of the students. And we've had glimpses of Luke taking Ben on missions away from their standard training. Though we only see a redeemed Ben Solo at the end of The Rise of Skywalker, his abilities speak for themselves, and his sacrifice for Rey completes the biggest desire of Anakin Skywalker, to save people from dying. Luke's final apprentice is Rey, a Palpatine by blood, but a Skywalker by choice. Rey is a powerful Force wielder who defeats Sidious and helps redeem Ben Solo, but her training truly begins under a disillusioned Luke trying to teach her why the Jedi must end. Her training is truly progressed in the year after the events of The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi by Leia, who helps her push her abilities to the point of levitating with floating rocks and making Force leaps. Rey augments this training with the sacred Jedi text of an ancient and forgotten time, but the bulk of her connection with the Force is truly through the children of Anakin Skywalker. Now, that's a lot of info dumped about this Jedi tree, but let's get into my rankings of these characters. At the bottom, the D tier of this massive group includes Hennix, Ty, and Vogt. They all die pretty brutally to the fallen Ben Solo as he begins to transform into Kylo Ren, with one even being accidental. Kumari Vosa also falls into this group, as she's labeled an embarrassment and isn't even named in canon yet, which is in stark contrast to her central role in the pre-Attack of the Clones bounty hunter game. Nymphiana is killed by Avaros because the nanotech takes over her, leaving her a tragedy more than anything else. Our C tier begins with young Grogu, which may come as a huge shock to many. Sure, he stopped the Mudhorn and Rancor and activated the Seeing Stone on Tython, but he currently has abandoned his training to be with Din, an attachment he as a child cannot easily let go after years of abandonment, trauma, and hiding. He could easily become a powerful Jedi a decade of storytelling from now, but he currently doesn't count as much of a Jedi. Gideon and whoever is behind him want him more for his midichlorians than anything else. Lula Talisola also falls into this tier, though I'm sure her rise up these ranks will be just as speedy as Grogu's. She's working through her attachment and burgeoning love for Zine, and she has so many doubts about her abilities throughout all of her appearances. This is compounded by the destruction of Starlight Beacon, so we really don't know if she's even alive. Moving on to the B tier, while they have had one of the least developed stories so far, Cantum Side cannot be ignored due to their rank of Jedi Master and Yoda's belief during their training. Yoda believed they needed to learn more about what they want, more than anything to do with the Force and Jedi teachings, before becoming a Jedi Knight. They're a character I really enjoyed reading about heavily in Midnight Horizon, and I can't wait for more. Rael Avaros may have been Dooku's first apprentice, but his story is for the most part complete, with his rejection of Dooku's dark side invitation and his healing from having had to kill his own apprentice for the greater good. He's a charming and roguish Jedi, but it seems he's reached the state of peace and content with where he is in life. Sindraling is described as a master of all 7 forms of lightsaber dueling, but he's given the nickname of the Troll by many Jedi and is somewhat disrespected. His skill is not enough to handle Anakin during the siege of the Jedi Temple, and we don't really know much about his Force abilities, which seem weaker than his legendary skill with the blade. Lastly, Ki-Adi-Mundi is a more capable Jedi on screen than Sindraling, but he has his own limitations. He's better known for being just another respected member of the Council with dogmatic views than any supremely talented Jedi. He does care about the attack on the Wookiees, which earns him some points. The A tier is where it gets tricky, as these Jedi had potential for more, but made sacrifices for their beliefs. As much as I love him, Qui-Gon is in this tier. He is an older man when he's bested by Maul, but he's also a man who for years was more invested in prophecy and finding his way amongst the will of the cosmic force and the energy of the living force. A little more focused on dueling after being trained by one of the greatest duelists for years should have saved his life. Leia Skywalker or Ghana Sola also falls in this list because she gives up her training after a year and only picks it up again to teach Rey over 30 years later. She's powerful enough like Qui-Gon to become a Force ghost, but she could have been a legendary Jedi while still alive. Finally, the S tier is quite simply stacked. This Jedi tree is too powerful, as even the B tiers could have been the greatest of other trees and lineages. In last place is Ahsoka Tano. As much as I love her, her abilities and her story, her decision to step away from the Jedi teachings, and the lack of having her own Padawan makes her Jedi and Force journey incomplete in some ways. Her connection with Mortis and her future storylines hint at even more to come for her, but she's a character heard amongst the Jedi voices in The Rise of Skywalker and is more than likely dead sometime during or after the Mandiverse era, but presumably before Shadows of the Sith. She has defeated death many a time already, so maybe she's simply immortal at this point. Dooku comes next, as his dueling skills and Force abilities are unparalleled even in his advanced age. But his fall to the dark side and his ego make him convinced that he's the true chosen one and that he can one day overtake Sidious. In Attack of the Clones, he already thinks that he's surpassed Yoda, but is forced to play a cheap trick in order to escape, making it obvious that he is a great, but not the greatest. Rey and Ben Solo are a dyad in the Force and are both tied for 6th place on this list. The sheer power of their bloodlines and their ability to learn from each other through their connection, as well as their exploits in defeating Snoke, Palpatine, Knights of Ren, and many more, make them a legendary tandem. The fact that both can heal each other in their times of death, a long forgotten ability, makes them the culmination of Anakin's deepest desire. Though Ben may be dead, we don't see a Force ghost like all the powerful Skywalkers have, and in my mind, he may be a part of Rey still, in some way. Rey's story is far from over, and I think Ben has a role to play in that as well. Maybe as an internal presence, a character that's attached to her in some way. Ultimately, the events that bring them together only last just over a year, so I can't rank them higher. Coming in 4th is Obi-Wan Kenobi. In terms of pure Force ability, he may be even lower than Ahsoka. I know, it sounds sacrilegious, but he's truly more of a master of negotiation more than anything else, and he uses Force tricks more often than his raw strength. And he has been too easily bested by Dooku in every encounter they've had. He gets major points for having the ultimate dedication to the light side of the Force, for being the only person to ever beat Anakin, and for ensuring that this Jedi tree and all Jedi didn't become extinct. In 3rd, we have Luke Skywalker. His raw ability and his dedication to learning everything about the Force without a singular teacher at times, while succeeding in saving his father from his darkness, makes him the ultimate hero. He does falter later, when the struggles of his youth reappear in his middle age, paralleling the myth of King Arthur and his later years. But his ultimate sacrifice at Crate and how he defeats Kylo without an inkling of violence is insane. Rejuvenated, he encourages Rey not to make the same mistakes as he did, ensuring that the Jedi will always continue and grow beyond even the unintended setbacks of one of its greatest. In 2nd comes Anakin Skywalker. He is the chosen one, and the most powerful on this list, but his fall to the dark side and the destruction of the Jedi, as well as his traumatic influence on his children and grandson, ensured that he is not the greatest of this tree. He ranks so highly because of his accomplishments during the Clone Wars and his tragic story, shaped just as much by the failings and departures of those he loved the most as by his own decisions. He ultimately completes his prophecy, and it cannot be understated how engrossing his journey is. Arguably, his journey went exactly as it needed to, as the Jedi of his era needed to be more like him and supportive of him if they were ever able to grow in strength and defeat Palpatine. The fact that one of the greatest, Mace Windu, refused to listen to Anakin in the most crucial period of time says it all. Which brings us to first place, greatest Jedi of all of them, Master Yoda. Though he fails to ease a troubled Anakin, fails to defeat Sidious, and fails to listen to Luke, he heeds his own lessons of learning from his mistakes, lecturing an older Luke years later on what the once younger man inspired him to reflect on. His centuries of service to the galaxy and Force are commendable, and he is truly everything it means to be a Jedi. Well, if you enjoyed this video, I might consider making a dark side version of this. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for watching the Star Wars Lads Weekly Special. If you enjoyed it, let us know by liking and commenting on the video below. If you enjoy our channel, click subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we drop a new video. We have 2 videos a week now, and YouTube Shorts 3 times a week. If you're a podcast fan, you can find us on Anchor, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, as well as other platforms. You can find everything that we're on our website, podpage.com/StarWarsLads. Lastly, make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok.